Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon for those people in the UK. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope that you enjoyed watching The Black Prince in whatever way you watched it, in English or in Punjabi. And I'm delighted to be hosting this after film discussion. And we've got a fantastic panel to speak to this afternoon, so do send us your questions. So I'm just going to get them all to introduce themselves. So we are joined by Gurinder Bance from the Sikh Museum Initiative. Would you like to say hello?
Hello there. Hello. Satinder.
And we also have Peter Bance, author and historian.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
And we are joined by Jasjeet Singh, who is the producer of the film, who we think doesn't quite have a camera yet, but is with us.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Hi, Sat Ji.
And we have Rup Magon joining us, who played Aroor Singh in the film.
Hello and Sat Shri Akal, everybody. It's really nice to be here with you all.
Hey.
Hello. And we also have the star of the film, singer, poet, and you probably know him better as Maharaj Dilip Singh, Satinder Sartaaj.
Hello, hi, Sat Shri Akal.
Hi.
Hi.
So thank you all for joining us. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the film and the story of Maharaja Dilip Singh, and also taking questions from the audience. So please do pop your questions in the chat or the comments section. My name's Melissa Hawker, and I'm the Learning Officer at the Ancient House Museum in Thetford. And the Ancient House Museum only exists because of the generosity of Maharaja Dilip Singh's second son, Prince Frederick Dilip Singh, who purchased the building so we could turn it into a museum in the 1920s. So that's my sort of connection with the story. So thinking about the beginning of the film, we see very rapidly a sort of sneak look at the Anglo-Sikh Wars, quite a complicated period of history. And Gurinder, I know you've done lots of work in that area. Could you fill us in with a little bit more detail, please?
Yeah, of course. I think that's the key thing, which is the kind of like a prelude to the film, is that Maharaja Jasjeet Singh had actually created the Sikh Empire. And initially, the Sikh Empire was actually on very stable ground. The Maharaja had created a great stable kind of environment. He created like the first empire, so to speak. And it actually kind of ran very nicely up until about 1839, when he actually passed away. And after 1839, there was obviously internal conflict within the Lahore Darbar, for instance, a lot of assassinations, etc. And the East India Company were actually kind of looking inwardly to see what was going to take place next. And during 1845, the actual kind of dialogue between the British and the Sikhs broke down in 1845, and that actually led to what we call the First Anglo-Sikh War, which included the battles of Mudki, Firozshah, culminating in the Battle of Sobrawa, in which the Sikhs were actually defeated. What that essentially did was they actually brought into effect a kind of like a quasi kind of British Sikh kind of government, so to speak. Maharaja Jindan Kaur was banished, as we know, torn away from Maharaja Dalip Singh. Then this kind of led to a lot of dissatisfaction in the Punjab, and essentially this led to a certain environment which led to the Second Anglo-Sikh War, with individuals like Diwan Maharaj from Multan and Sher Singh Adariwala actually leading the forces against the British, culminating with a number of battles again where the Sikhs were defeated and led to the annexation of Punjab. And this is where we actually start seeing, you know, the actual movie kind of starting from that kind of period. But it's very interesting to note that it was the Sikh Wars which kind of precipitated a lot of what takes place in the Black Prince movie.
Wonderful. Thank you for filling us in with those details. So what I'd like to ask now is sort of how each of you came upon the story of Maharaj Dilip Singh. Was it something that you always knew about, that you sort of knew from being a child, or was it something that you sort of came to later? Peter, could I start with you with that question? How did you discover the story?
Sure. Now, I was always told about the Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and obviously Dalip Singh as a child, but my real sort of influence and what really took me back was when I visited Elvedon during a university trip. And I found out that he was married, he had children, he had a museum dedicated to him. And that sort of started my journey into looking into and delving into his family history and researching him. And I ended up writing books and working on documentaries on the Maharaja.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Peter. And Satinder, what about you? How did you come upon this story?
I think I am visiting United Kingdom from 2010 October. In the very first visit, I visited I live in a state, and especially Norfolk, Suffolk, and the grave of Maharaja Dalip Singh, and I felt a strong divine connection with that. So coincidentally, I was touring United States, and there were many Sikhs like Jasjeet Ji and and Rup is also from Northern America, and they were thinking to make a movie on it, and they were first searching someone to portray Maharaja Dalip Singh, and somehow they found me a little kind of a similar face, and similar complexion, eyes, and height, etc., etc. And we went to Bristol Entertainment Partners, Los Angeles. It's a very profound and famous production house of Hollywood film industry in Los Angeles. And they took some of my previous works, and they said, will you be able to or willing to do a lead role in this film? I said, honestly, I wasn't an actor. Still, I am a kind of a learning actor.
See, we've got Indi, so let's ask Indi the same question. How did you first know about the story of Maharaja Dalip Singh?
From Peter's book, actually, that drew me to the story itself and the film itself as well, the Maharaja Dalip Singh Black Prince, and that was the real inspiration behind me getting involved in the project as well.
Fantastic. So importance of the film there in cementing your knowledge of the story.
Yeah.
So fantastic. Thank you, Indi. Do we have Jasjeet still on camera available to talk?
The second, as far as your question is concerned, if I continue, actually I did my MPhil and my thesis was on Maharaja Dalip Singh. So from my college days, I always feel that he's a misunderstood personality, and as far as the Sikhs are concerned, most of the Sikhs were thinking, when even we were in the college, that he was kind of a drunkard, womanizer, money hungry kind of person. But in reality, when you see the British books, even the documents, when he came to the UK in earlier age, everybody was writing that he was a very honest, straightforward, religious kind of person and very charming boy. But at the end, why he went against the British, because he had been cheated, as far as his kingdom is concerned, or his personal properties, which he occupied from his great-grandfathers, from, Mahan Singh and all that. So then I thought, it's a story needs to be told, we need to tell to our community first, and then if we can fix, because if you see his settlement as far as his pension or his property is concerned, and it was never settled even till today, So that's, I thought, it needs to be told.
Mm. And it's a huge time and expanse of quite complicated history to encompass into sort of a 2-hour film. Were there very difficult decisions to be made behind the scenes of what made it into the movie and what didn't?
Yeah, it was really hard. We actually, I just want to tell everybody, that we need to appreciate, we're really thankful to Peter Bance. If you see the look of the movie, that's his. We went to his house, he opened his house, he offered his, all the collections. Our costume department, arts department was going to him, he was spending time. If you see the whole brownish look, that came from his house, when we saw the pictures, his costumes and everything. So no doubt it was really tough, because our movie, we made it, it's about 3 hours. Then we had to bring down to 2 hours. And yet then you see the gaps in the movie. Even now you see the gaps. But we have a 4-part series we didn't even release yet, which we are going to release, and pretty soon. Maybe on the Netflix. If we get a deal with them, we are just still negotiating. And that way, the problem is it's a long history. That's why I'm writing a book now. I have to, I'm working on the book. And after the movie, I came to know about a lot of facts which we didn't even know at the time of the movie. You couldn't, so naturally it should be in the book format.
Fantastic. But you're hoping that some of the footage that you had to cut from the cinema release will be able to be released in another format?
Yeah, it will be 4-part series, 42 minutes each. There are 4 parts. So it comes to 164 minutes,
Ah, how exciting. Oh, that's something to look forward to. So we'll be watching this space to find out more.
Let me call Satinder, let me call Sartaaj. In the meantime, you guys continue.
Super, thank you. So at the heart of the film, we've got the relationship between Maharaja Dilip Singh and 2 kind of towering women, Queen Victoria and also his mother, Maharani Jind Kaur. And Peter, I wondered if you could speak a little bit more about their relationship and the importance of their relationship to what happened in the rest of the Maharaja's life.
Yeah, so Victoria and Maharani Jinder were the most 2 sort of important, influential figures in the Maharaja's life. Obviously, Victoria having a motherly touch to her when Dilip Singh came to England in 1854. And later in life, in 1861, when he meets Jinder, then she has a certain effect on him. And I believe that Lady Logan calls him that he's falling back into his native ways when interacting with his mother. But in the film, quite interestingly, obviously, there's a scene where Maharani Jinder goes to meet Queen Victoria, which obviously Jasjeet will elaborate. It never actually took place in reality, but in the focus of the film, it did add that extra bit of spice, actually showing that little rudeness, that little spiciness between the 2 women, where she despises her and Victoria's trying to put Jinder down. So it was nicely edited into the film, although historically it wasn't accurate.
I suppose that's one of the things that you often have to do with dramatizations of history. It tells us, as it were, a higher truth of that relationship, and you see Maharani Jinder, her kind of quirkiness, and she's even in this difficult position, she's holding her own. That's right, yeah. And obviously one of the best scenes of the film is when Maharani Jinder meets, or Shabana Azmi, who's acting as Maharani Jinder, meets the Maharaja after 14 years, and I think it's one of the most emotional scenes in the film, and one of my favourite. And I was quite fortunate to be at the shoot on that day to see that particular set and shoot take place. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, thank you. And we were able to share some of your behind-the-scenes footage of that during the tweet along. So that's always very exciting to see what puts all together. And we're wanting to ask Satinder a bit more about what it was like to be in that scene, playing that emotion, and also against this sort of towering figure of Indian cinema, who amazingly cast as Maharani Jinder. What did you think of her sort of portrayal? Does she have the look you imagine for the Maharani? Do we know what the Maharani looked like? Well, we have the depiction of the George Richmond painting, which was probably the most accurate image we have of the Maharani, which he came here in 1861. And I think on an acting perspective, I don't think you could have got a better actress than Shabana Azmi to play Maharani Jinder. I think she was really good, and obviously her Punjabi's really, really outstanding, and her acting is obviously sort of #1. So I think ideal, a very, very good casting for her role. Yeah, she's but you can't take your eyes off her, can you, when she's on the screen? It's fantastic. Yes. Well, I can see that Gurinder's there, so I'm wondering, Gurinder, if you'd like to speak a little bit about Maharani Jinder's jewellery and the work that you've been doing to make that sort of more accessible to people. Okay, right. So yeah, it's really important that we organisations like ourselves, the Sikh Museum Initiative, we were actually looking at how the jewellery came down from the Punjab into the UK, for instance. So
what we've done is we've done a digitized Asian program of looking at some of the relics which have come to the UK, and then we've actually recreated them in 3D. So some of these are kind of important, should we say, piece of jewelry have been given to us from a private collection, and we were able to recreate these in 3D, and we've got them live on our 3D museum, which is at www.anglo-sikhmuseum.com, which we'll share the link with everybody shortly. I think there's a couple of key things about the jewelry. One is the fact that quite a lot of quantity of jewelry was actually kind of confiscated when Maharaja Jinder Kaur had actually kind of, technically escaped from the clutches of the British, but they were returned to her on her return to the UK, basically. So they were actually kept in a holding point in order for her to actually kind of just be a bit more subservient to the British, essentially. But it's really interesting because even in the film, you actually do see her with all the sparkling jewelry on as well. So it just adds a different flavor to it in terms of how the movie portrays everything. But I think on a larger or a wider kind of question in terms of what the jewelry entails, we should also hark back a little bit to the treasury or the Doshakana of Punjab, which was actually completely ransacked by the British. And when they actually annexed the Punjab, for instance, most of it did go to various UK collections across, all across the UK essentially. And some of these items we can still see today. So for instance, there is the jewelry related to Maharaja Dalip Singh, which you can actually see at the National Museum in Edinburgh, for instance.
And part of your initiative is sort of bringing together many of these pieces from disparate collections to one place where people can sort of explore them, from their own home in some cases.
No, absolutely, and that's what has always been a big of an issue in terms of how do we access objects which have actually, are available here in the UK but not available or widely accessible. So, for instance, there is a lot of Sikh relics and artifacts in many UK museums and private collections as well. And our initiative has been to actually kind of work with these museums like the Royal Armouries, the Victoria and Albert Museum. Obviously, we'll be working with you guys as well, Ancient House as well, and various other kind of organizations to actually kind of digitize these objects and in a way actually make them more accessible, and all the great work that Taran Singh from Taran 3D has done as well. So we will be sharing the link with everybody shortly as well. So, it's something which just kind of shows you, while some of these objects may not be accessible, they are now accessible in a new technological point of view from, in terms of 3D, essentially.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Hi, sorry. You asked me a question, Melissa, and Peter also,
okay.
but I wasn't mute. It's okay. As a historian, because, as a Peter, it's really hard. As a historian, you see few things you are not showing the way it's supposed to be. Suppose the Maharaja was really big, fatty guy after 40s. And once you have to decide this kind of stuff and the bald, and you will see there was only one scene like this, because it doesn't look visually good, and the actors don't even agree to this. And similarly, the scene we have, it's a very perfect example that Peter was asking. The Queen or the Maharani Jinda has some imagination, some thinking about each other. How we portray on the screen. That's the question. We cannot say Dr. Logan says, Queen thinks about you, this way. So then we have to take a liberty to explain it. So like Maharani Jinda was thinking, this stole everything, including up to the, little stuff the British stole, from their kingdom and brought it here. So it was saying, oh, these cups, looks like, Similarly, the Queen doesn't want to meet her. She was sitting in a way and then she leaves. So that's why we have to, take liberty to portray, to show the scenes on the screen. So there are 3-4 screens, or you can say fictionalized, but actually those are not distorting the history, but those are based on the content, in other words. Yep.
Yes, I thought it was really interesting that you'd chosen to have that imagined scene revolve around tea, which for a lot of people will feel like a quintessentially English thing, but of course it's only English because of imperialism, because of colonialization and empire. I thought that was a really a clever and telling way of making that point.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I think we have Rup back. Rup, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you very loud and clear.
Fantastic. Great to have you back.
Sure.
We're just sort of catching up on some of the questions after the awkwardness of people crashing our conversation. Could you fill us in on how you first heard about Maharaja Dilip Singh?
Growing up in a Punjabi Sikh household in Canada, we hear about Maharaja Ranjit Singh over and over and over. You know a lot about him, and unfortunately, Maharaja Dilip Singh sort of was a footnote in those stories. And so when I heard about this project and I heard about Jasjeet Singh producing a film starring Satinder Sartaaj and Shabana Azmi, the article in the Hollywood Reporter was already out. So at that point, I had reached out to the director Kavi Raz, and when I started to really understand the story, especially the way that Jasjeet and Sartaaj and Kavi were telling the story, was something that I hadn't heard that version. You only hear the version that is written. And then, just to understand that Jasjeet Singh did so much research on a different perspective, that just was eye-opening and awakening moment for me, where I wanted to learn a lot more. And then playing the role of Aroor Singh, who was Maharaja Dilip Singh's Man Friday, right-hand man, was a different experience altogether, because there was not a lot of information about Aroor Singh. So, but in every good story, you need to have that character that the lead character can bounce his ideas off. So Aroor Singh became that person, and it's a very interesting role to play. But yeah, that's basically my story.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. And we've had a question from Twitter for you, from Amit. I'm not quite sure where he's from, but he's on Twitter, and he says your performance was really powerful in the movie.
Oh, wow.
What motivated you to go from singing to acting?
That's a good question. Going from, I'm a singer. For those of you who don't know me, I've sing in a band called Josh, and we have been doing that for the last 20 years. And so when you're doing music videos, you're in front of the camera a lot. And so I did a movie called Breakaway, Speedy Sings, about 5-6 years ago. And then I got the acting bug. Being able to portray another character completely away from who you are as a person, yet using your own life experiences to portray that character was something that was just incredibly fascinating to me. So I dove into acting. I learned how to write, and I took some classes, and here we are.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. And you played this character over a number of years in the film. How did you sort of approach the signs of aging in your acting?
I mean, aging is one thing, but understanding how to play a character in a period piece was something that Kavi Raz, a director, he really sort of coached me through this, because we now live in a world of slang. We don't say every word. We do not say every word. And so, as you can tell, I speak with a Canadian accent. I'm Canadian. So learning that RP, as you guys say, was very difficult, especially when you have a crew in England who's not judging you, but they're there watching you, and getting that, you have to get that accent right. But then understanding that every gesture, for instance, we were playing cards, the Maharaja and I are playing cards, and I threw a card on the table, and Kaviji said, cut. You can't throw a card, you have to place it. And so, it was those experiences. And then, of course, going from decade to decade to decade, changing your voice, changing that was, all through the guidance of a wonderful team and good makeup.
Oh, yes. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. I have to say, because I had only really known you in the movie, when I was researching you and seeing you speaking with your own accent, I was so thrown, because it was so believable. I had just assumed you talked like that all the time. So well done.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So it's the very emotional scene that we were speaking about earlier. So I'm wanting to ask Satinder about what it was like to act in that scene when we're able to get back to him. But while we're waiting for the technical side to work, we've got a question from the audience from Michael Hawley, and he's got a question for everybody. Is there anything you would do differently if you had to make the film again? Or is there something you wish you could have included but didn't make it into the cut? So who would like to start with that? Rup, you're on my screen large. Would you like to answer first?
You know, unfortunately, the stories, you know, when you're making a feature film, there's a certain length that you have to sort of follow. Bollywood obviously has those marathon style long videos, and then in on the West side, you know, they're usually between 90 minutes and 110 minutes, and it's on the page, it's on the script. There was so much that we actually had to cut to reduce. I remember a first cut being, and Jasjeet Singh could tell you best, but I remember a first cut being a lot longer than the movie is currently. So it's always tricky when you have a history piece and you have to make a feature film, which is about one character and everybody follows that one character. So perhaps if we were to do this again, it could have been made into a series where a TV series where, you know, we could have perhaps shown the whole thing, that everything that was filmed. We filmed a lot more than what you've seen. Jasjeet Singh could probably, you know, go from here much better than I can, if he's here.
I think so Jeet, I think, was earlier saying that there's hopes that it might become a TV series, maybe on one of the streaming services. So we're all keeping our fingers crossed for that. So Jeet, was there anything that you wanted to add? Anything that you'd have done differently or added in if you had your time again?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, let me tell you, you know, when we write something, whether it's a poem or article or even the film, first you decide the audience. The problem with us was two type of audience. If you go as, you know, Western audience versus Punjabi, and we were in between. That's why, you know, we couldn't, especially for the Western audience, we could have shown, you know, like a lot spoiled kid actually to start with, you know, doing all kind of stuff. Then he reads Guru Granth Sahib, he meets mother, then he becomes a good guy and all that stuff. But, you know, with our community, if we do that, we will be criticized a lot. That, okay, suppose, you know, if we need to show the Maharaja smoking cigarette, he was smoking. As a Christian, it doesn't matter. But in Sikhism, it's a big issue. So then we will get a criticism, okay, you know, they showed Maharaja Dalip Singh, our last king, smoking cigarettes in the film. So we were in this, you know, kind of situation where we go in between. So actually we couldn't show it as a feature film drama type thing, you know. So it was kind of a docu-drama, just, you know, showing our people, you know, what the history is. So Western audience didn't accept it because it was not a feature film like thing. So if we have to make it, you know, first we have to decide what audience. If we have to do it again, it cannot be with both audiences. We have to decide one way or the other. So that's, you know, and that's I don't know how we fix it. We can't. And I will not take a chance anyway to go again.
Come on, man. One more time, Jasjeet Paji. One more time.
No. Something else. There are so many other issues.
And did you shoot in both English and Punjabi? Did you do the scenes twice? Or how does it work that there's the two different language versions?
No, it's English. The main is in English, but Punjabi is dubbed.
I understand. It was very interesting for me watching it in Punjabi and enjoying seeing the different characters talking in Punjabi. I'm trying to learn, but not so good so far. So Peter, I'm wondering if we can ask you this question. Is there anything that you wish could have been fitted into the film that you know from your extreme study and knowledge of this subject?
Yeah. Well, from what I know from Jasjeet, that obviously this film was much longer. I think something like 4 hours originally. I think the uncut version or the total filming they had. So there was a lot of scenes in the film which, you know, Jasjeet and the production team wanted it to remain. And sadly, due to obviously for distribution purposes, it had to be cut down. But what the story did tell, I mean, it basically got the basic story of the Maharaja told, and that's what I think was important. I know Jasjeet said that we've got two audiences here. We've got the Western audience and we've got the Punjabi audience, the Indian audience as well to please. And it's very hard to remain neutral and make it into a successful film because people want it to just lean towards one side. So that's the challenge that Jasjeet had. So you've really got to decide who do you want to favour and what's the final impact of the film. Obviously, I mean, timing allowed, I would have loved to see some aspect of the end of Ranjit Singh's realm, you know, him maybe seated on or even on his deathbed or anything. It would have been nice to see that in one of the shots, but obviously due to the length of time we had, you've got to understand it wasn't going to be possible. But I think it was a great attempt, and it told the basic story of the Maharaja, which was important.
Absolutely, and I know for us at Ancient House, it's been amazing to see the response to the film and the effect of the film, that so many more people now are arriving at the museum who already know something of the story. They've seen the film and they're coming to find out more, to find out the bits that, as you say, couldn't be fitted into those 2 hours. And that's been really brilliant that we've had it's brought a whole new audience to the story.
That's right, because not everyone's going to go out and look at a documentary or read the book or go to the records office and start researching the Maharaja. So this is another type of audience who would not be doing that. So it gets people who otherwise wouldn't read or wouldn't go academically into the story to actually find out what the story was about.
Absolutely.
And similarly, I mean, years ago, one of the Indian channels dramatized the Mahabharat story, the history of the Mahabharat, into like an 80-episode drama. People who would never have actually read the Mahabharat or would have made the effort actually got to see it on their TVs and view it. So and it became a success, and it told us, and it got the story across, which was the sort of the main goal of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. It's made such a difference that bringing it to a whole different audience and enabled us to think about different ways of telling the story as well, because there's a thirst for more information.
Sure.
Indi, would you like to speak a little bit about some of the other activities that we've done sort of in the wake of the Black Prince coming out and an explosion of interest in the story?
So I'm Indi Sandhu. I manage the Essex Cultural Diversity Project and also the director for the Festival of Norfolk and Punjab. And the festival itself took inspiration, like I said, from Peter's book and the film itself, The Black Prince. And in the first year, we marked the 125th anniversary of Dalip Singh, and with a range of partners, including funding from the Heritage Fund, Arts Council and Norfolk City Council, and also Bretland Council. So in the second year, we were quite fortunate to have the Satinder Sartaaj as our patron for the festival. And we were quite privileged that on his route to Canada on his tour, that he came to Thetford to be part of the festival itself. So the festival took place in 2018 in Thetford, and we had a range of activities that took place over 2 weeks. So basically we took over Thetford really, and Melissa and the team at Ancient House were really helpful. Peter played a big role in that as well, Peter Bance. And some big celebrities as well that came through, like the Hardeep Singh Kohli, Satnam Sanghera, Gurinder Chadha, and the Singh twins, who actually did a special piece that was exhibited at Ancient House, The Casualty of War. And then Gurinder brought his 3D images as well, which were great and really featured well in the exhibition. So then we also had Paul Barbara doing his wonderful demonstration of Punjabi cuisine at the Thomas Paine Hotel. And then we had a big procession in the centre, which was a big procession with the door players, Gatka, and also Morris dancers. That was the key actual element of the festival, was to bring the two communities together. So we actually brought in Gatka and Bhangra dancers and the Morris dancers to do a big finale at the end, which went really well with all the communities. And then last year we did the Festival of Norfolk and Punjab. So the festival became really wide, appreciated by the community locally. So what we thought was it was good to celebrate the life and the legacy of Dalip Singh through the Festival of Norfolk and Punjab and make it into a county-wide festival. So we brought in a range of other venues and locations located to the Dalip Singh family. And again, we have some big celebrity names like Satinder Sartaaj, who launched the festival on the inauguration. And we had cooking demos, we had Bollywood dancing, Bhangra dancing, and really bringing all the communities together really to celebrate this. And then following on from the festivals, we've actually started a heritage trail, Dalip Singh Heritage Trail, which brings in locations and also bringing in sites and places located to the Dalip Singh family. And then we launched the festival at Ancient House with a brochure as well. So there's a really nice brochure that goes along with the Heritage Trail, and that can be taken place throughout Norfolk. And the festival itself can be seen, and also we can visit our website, www.Dalip Singh Trail, which is available online and also through the brochure. I think we're getting some interruption in there.
A little bit, but we could see most of it, Indi. It's and I'm really excited that the trail is available online, and even if people are shielding at the moment with the virus, you can go on to Google Maps and virtually take some of that tour and seeing some of those places that are linked with the Maharaja and his family.
Unfortunately, this year we couldn't have the festival due to the COVID disruption, so we hope to bring it back next year, hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We're all waiting for the end of lockdown to revive our plans. Yes, absolutely, fingers crossed. And we're excited for developments that we're working on at the museum to have more space to tell the Maharaja's story in more detail, and the story of his children. So we're coming to the end of our time now. Unfortunately, we've not been able to get Satinder back into the conversation. Despite the best efforts of our wonderful technical person, Taryn, who's been trying to make that happen. So I want to give people an opportunity to say something about what else they're doing. So if people have been excited to learn more about this story, where else can they go to find out more? So Gurinder, would you like to start?
Essentially, what I would like to say is that I've just recently released a new book. And it's called The British and the Sikhs. You may not be able to see it because of the image in front of me, but that contains like the relationship between the British and the Sikhs from the 18th century, from the Sikh missile period all the way up to the 1900 period. So that contains a lot of information about the Anglo-Sikh Wars, the annexation of the Punjab, including we've given light onto Ancient House Museum as well. So that's just been released and it's available from hellion.co.uk here in the UK. And like I said, our world's first 3D museum is now available for people to actually explore objects as well. So people do need to actually go and see that just to kind of get an idea of the extravagant kind of workmanship which was undertaken during the Sikh Empire as well, during the reign of Maharaja Ranjit Singh as well. But yeah, no, it's been a great opportunity today to actually, speak with the rest of the team who actually, took part and made the film. So yeah, kudos to everybody who's taken part today.
Fantastic, thank you, Gurinder. I can see we've got people with their raised hands. If I can ask you, if you've got a question, please to put it into the chat, and we'll make sure that we look through those and try and get answers for them, just to make it a little bit easier for us. That would be super. Peter, would you like to speak to where else people can go to find out information?
Well, apart from the Ancient House Museum where you're based, which is the hub of East Anglia for Dalip Singh. I'm also part of the Anglo-Punjab Heritage Foundation, so we basically mark various anniversaries connected with Maharaja Dalip Singh and his family. We hold a special service on the death anniversary of the Maharaja every year in October, and we're hoping obviously this year things will get cleared up with the COVID situation, so we can carry that on. Also, a major anniversary and someone who I've been particularly working on is Princess Catherine Dalip Singh, who was the Maharaja's second daughter. And I often refer to her as the Punjabi Schindler, because when I was researching her, she actually saved many Jewish families from Nazi Germany in the Second World War. And many people don't know this. And I've actually met the descendants of these families who are living in America, in England and in Israel, who basically say we owe our shared existence to Princess Catherine Dalip Singh, who had saved them from Germany because she was living out in Germany. And next year is her 150th anniversary. And we're hoping to mark that with a major exhibition at the Ancient Arts Museum next year. And anybody wants any information, feel free to get in touch with me either through the Anglo-Punjab Heritage Foundation or my personal Instagram page, peter.bance. Happy to answer any questions. And if you wanted to tour East Anglia on the Leap Sing, happy to give you the trail details and what's there to see in connection with the Leap Sing family.
Fantastic, Peter, thank you. And if people want a book, I can see there's your 2 great publications behind you, which I think are available in some good bookshops.
Yeah, only the good ones.
Which should be reopening on Monday, so people heading down to the shops to pick up Gurinder's book and your book as well as soon as the doors open. Indi, do you want to just mention the link to the trail again, so people can
so people can go to www.theleapsingtrail.com and see the trail on there virtually, and also all the locations as well related to the Leap Sing family. But hopefully we'll bring the festival next year, Festival of Norfolk and Punjab, back into 2021 with a big celebration.
Super, thank you, Indi. Jasjeet, what's you working on at the moment? What do we expect next from you?
Myself? Asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'm working on the book, writing a book. Once this lockdown is open, then I'll come to England and just need to see some British documents. And because with the film, as Peter explained, you can tell the people a little bit of the stories, but if you want to explore more, nobody could understand the story unless you start the history from the Sikh missiles, as Gurinder Mann, started with it, because you have to have a knowledge about his great grandfathers, and that's what's happened in 1846, then 1849 treaties, how the treaties were handled by the British, and how he was looking for his 28-year journey, asking British to settle his accounts. That's the major part which is missing in most of the books. The revenue in the Punjab at that time, how it was increased, how he ended up, fighting against the British, because the Queen was kind of a family to him, and he was like a child to the Queen. And if there are a lot of people, in Britain who thought, the Leap Singh was their friend or child, or very, whether it's Lady Logan, Dr. Logan, Colonel Mallison, you name it, there are so many people who were really sincere to him. But at the end, when he writes in July, I'll just read it, July 10th, 1886, to the Queen, he says, "I'm a proud Sikh, although I may and most likely will break, yet by the help of God, I will never bend. However disastrous the consequences of my own acts might prove, what will cheerfully lie on the bed I have made for myself." So my book will revolve around this, So let's see how it goes. That's my only thing,
Oh, fantastic! Exciting. We will be looking out for that. Thank you, Rup. What about you? What's your latest project? What are you busy with?
Apart from making cooking videos at home during lockdown, working on new music and new films. But I would like to say one thing about the Black Prince and how important it is to produce feature films. Documentaries are wonderful, TV series are wonderful, but the leap that Jasjeet Singh took to make this film, believe it or not, it was met with harsh criticism at points as well. And of course I can be biased because I'm part of the team and I'm on the cast, but it was met with criticism, and people were actually, contesting certain scenes and this. And look, we get it. There's no way to make this perfect for everybody who's watching. There's no right way. It cannot be perfect. What needs to happen is the acknowledgement of a beautiful Punjabi film that looks like a masterpiece. I mean, there's no Punjabi film that looks this nice. And, there's a lot of hard work, performances from Sartaaj, from Jason Fleming, from Amanda Root, from, of course, Shabana Azmi. All that said and done, yes, we can criticize, but, I think being appreciative of it is also very important. And so if you can share this film in whichever way possible, I really urge everyone watching to share it with people, because it's a wonderful story with a different perspective. And thank you for having me.
Oh, fantastic. What a wonderful note to end on. We can only echo those thoughts, that I want people to kind of go out and watch this film and find out more about the story. And it is so beautiful. The music is beautiful. The scenes are beautifully put together. So yes, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to everybody who came to be part of this and who stuck with us through the technical difficulties. We really appreciate that. But my last thought is, of course, to send everyone to come and visit the ancient house and see some of the artifacts we've got related to the Maharaja and the Maharini at the museum when we reopen. But until that happens, do check out our social media feeds, because we're sharing stories of the Maharaja and his children through those. So if you look at Ancient House Museum on Facebook and Twitter, you can find out more there. So thank you everybody for being part of this discussion. And thank you so much to the Sikh Museum Initiative for hosting this for us. We really appreciate it. So thank you everybody, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Cheerio.